Hello again, you sick, twisted weather freaks, and welcome to another fun-filled, action-packed, and intellectually stimulating edition of This Week in Weather. I'm your host, meteorologist DT, your commander of chaos, your colonel of confusion, your captain of catastrophe, and now with extra gluten added. So this week we're talking about the 11 to 12 December here, a couple of different items. The cold pattern is definitely going to return, so don't be too disgruntled by the mild temperatures and the rain. Also, watch December 2021 for a potentially significant eastern U.S. low, probably inland, but I'm not certain about that. Then there are hints of a follow-up low on December 23rd in the cold air on the East Coast, right before Christmas. So that looks interesting. And things look much better for January 2025. So let's get right to it. First, this here is the website. If you haven't seen it before, there it is. Lots of great stuff on the website here. Don't forget the shop page. We sell snow removal forecasts, the 3-week newsletter as well, and also some other stuff for our grain commodities. So just keep that in mind as well. And of course, the Mid-Atlantic operational forecast, which is, I think it's only $35 a month, and it covers the entire Mid-Atlantic in 12 different regions. So that might be something you're interested in. All right, and then this here is the weather risk grains page, which is still there. And here's the blue sky page, just to let you know I'm down on blue sky where it's nice and relatively less hostile. Let's just put it that way. And then here's the radar. Now this is the cold front pushing through, and you can see it has ended a little bit of snow up here in the mountains of the Adirondacks and Catskills as forecasted. A lot of tremendous rain here in east New England and strong winds. Now this is just tentative. The rainfall amounts here, this is quite tentative as you can see. Only 5 p.m. on Wednesday. And the rainfall amounts, 1 to 2, 1 to 3 inches in this area, 1 to 2, 3 inches down in here. But there were some gaps. Not that much in New York City, Philly, New Jersey, south and east of Baltimore and D.C., northern Delaware, not that much. Better rains here in the southern Virginia Piedmont, and then in Hampton Roads, east of Richmond. And then also central and western North Carolina, pretty good rains upstate South Carolina and central Georgia. Now remember, the front is still progressing eastward. But it's now pretty much off the coast. So the rains in those areas here are pretty much done, I would think. And in New England, of course, the rain was still going on when this is as of 5 p.m. So obviously a lot of rain here in eastern New England is going to be much, much more than that when it finally gets done. All right, let's go to other stuff, talking about the MJO, the teleconnections, before we get to the actual operational forecast. So in other words, what we're doing here is we're going to look at the big picture here, okay? See where we're going, the big picture. Now, this here is the MJO, the Maddie and Julian oscillation, and then there's 8 different phases to it. Each of these phases corresponds to a different kind of weather pattern, depending on the month and the season, and also whether you have El Nino or La Nina across North America. The MJO also affects things in South America. It affects China and Australia and India. So this is a pretty big oscillation globally. And this goes back from November 1st through December 10th, about 40 days. And you can see it was in phase 8 here. And we started getting cold here in November into early December. Then now we're in phase 4, now in phase 5. Notice what it's doing here. It's really is slowed down here. Jigga, 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 jigga. Go back and forth here, not doing much, moving very slowly into phase 5. Now phase 5 is a very warm phase, as you'll see. It's quite mild for most of the country east of the Rockies, and it's also pretty wet, and that's exactly what we've been seeing. Now the models show that the European here takes the extended European into phase 6, as you can see, and then finally in 11 to 15 day and towards the new year, the 16 to 20 day, it takes into phase 7. So does the GFS. Now the European curves it towards a neutral circle, and here I don't think that's right. I think it's just doing that because as you go further out in time, it regresses to its mean, which is the neutral state, the neutral circle. So I just think the European is probably doing this for no reason. The GFS is probably right. And this is a fairly strong MJO wave, as you can see here. So what does that mean? Well, this is December phase 6. Remember, we just talked about here phase 6. What does that look like? Well, we have a bit of a ridge in California, but this is a flat ridge. It's not amplified. And you have a bit of a negative anomaly in the Great Lakes in eastern Canada. So you get some cooling behind the front, which is what we're seeing. We're entering phase 6 now. So we're getting some cool air behind the front, but not a lot. This is not an Arctic pattern at all. This is just, seasonal early December, late November type of temperatures, not really a breakdown. Now, once we get into phase 7, though, things look a little different. Now, this is what phase 7 looks like, which starts around Christmas and continues into early January, it looks like. Here we have a very strong block in the northern latitudes, northwest Canada, and we have a negative anomaly in southeast Canada, so we're getting some kind of cross-polar flow here. It's not overpowering, and we still have a little above normal heights here in the across the southern U.S., but this is not a bad pattern. This is a somewhat colder pattern, and we are getting some positive blocking up in here, so this does have some potential for winter storminess down the road if we get into January, and assuming that the La Nina remains either weak or neutral, which is what it is right now. Big debate going on right now whether or not the La Nina is actually borderline weak or whether it's in the neutral conditions. A case could be made either way. But this is a pretty good schematic of what phase 7 looks like in January, assuming, of course, we actually go into phase 7, which I'm pretty sure we will. Okay, now let's look at our week-to-week teleconnections. That was the long term. Let's look at the week-to-week here, okay? Now, here we have North America, the 4 primary teleconnections, the red line. This is the Pacific teleconnections. These are the Atlantic teleconnections, all right? So we'll look at these for different. Now, a teleconnection we're talking about here is a particular type of configuration at the upper levels of the atmosphere, the jet stream, which impacts other portions of the globe. So a teleconnection in Central Asia can affect the weather pattern in China or in the Central Pacific. And a teleconnection in Australia can affect the weather pattern in South America. So, but in North America, these are the 4 primary teleconnections we look at during the winter months. So let's look at them here. Here is the Atlantic side, the Arctic oscillation, positive or negative. If you like cold and snow, you want to see this either be neutral or negative. Well, you can tell right now we are negative as of December 11th. We have a little blip right here, and then all these models show it pretty much bounces around to neutral past Christmas towards the end of the month, right, towards the new year. And there's the North American oscillation. Here again, you want this, if you like cold and snow, you want this to be negative. And here you can see we are slightly negative now, then we bounce up, and then we stay a little on the positive side, and then drifting towards neutral around Christmas. Not great. Arctic oscillation is not too bad. This isn't that good. On the Pacific side, here is the Eastern Pacific Oscillation. Now, this is what's known as a cross-polar flow. When the EPO is in the negative phase here, you get cross-polar flow. You get a big ridge in Alaska, and it taps the air from Siberia and brings it straight down into the U.S. That's how you get your big Arctic outbreaks. So you want this to be negative. And here you can see we are negative, we go positive. Then it looks like some of the models are trying to trend negative as we go towards the end of December. Not all of them, but some of them are. And then finally, the Pacific North American pattern is positive. We go down towards neutral here, and then we bounce positive again, indicating a return of cold air after December 20th. And it stays that way through the end of the month. Okay. Now here's the polar vortex. All right. So this is looking at the top of the world. This is the North Pole here. This is North America. There's China and Japan. Here's Europe. There's Africa, right? So this is the polar vortex. And notice here all the dark blue colors, which represent extremely cold temperatures. You can see that, and then also you can also see how it's all very compacted, very intense here. Lots of lines around it. When the polar vortex is strong like this, what happens is all your cold air is locked up in the Arctic region. So when the polar vortex is weak, you get more negative Arctic oscillations, like here. The Arctic oscillation is more likely to become negative when the polar vortex becomes stretched or diffuse or weakens. So we want to see what's going to happen here over the next 7 days. Now this is day 7. This is December 18th. Now again, you can see that the vortex it moved a little bit, and it's not quite as strong. It's weakened a little bit from its max and severe intensity right here. And it's weakened a little bit here on December 18th. Also, we're seeing a little bit of red here, which represents warmer temperatures trying to develop here. And that could be the sign that we're maybe going to see a sudden stratospheric warming event, which is, again, in the middle and late winter into the spring, that can cause the pattern to get quite stormy and very winter-like in North America. It causes the polar vortex to split, and then you're off to the races with all sorts of potential significant storminess. So we'll see if that happens. This may not be anything, but we'll see. And then if we go to finally day 15, again, this is the operational GFS. You can see the warming right here again. Now look at what happens to the polar vortex on December 25, 26. See how it gets stretched? Look at it. So we were here, and then we go to this in 2 weeks. So yeah, that's a very stretched polar vortex. That means the Arctic air is going to come plunging southward into the central and eastern U.S. around Christmas time. So be prepared for a really cold Christmas, potentially. Okay. Now let's go to the operational weather maps, week 1 and week 2. Let's see what that's showing. Now this is the next 7 days. So here we are with our next rain event. And notice here the flow is, you have no ridge on the west coast. You see this is just a trough, ridge, trough ridge, just a very boom, boom, boom pattern. These are just flying right across from the Pacific jet stream across North America. So there's an upper low right here in Kansas and Nebraska. You have a low pressure area here. It's going to bring some rain into the plains and the Midwest. And then you have this cold Canadian high pressure. This is for Friday and Saturday. Not that cold, but seasonally cold. It's not Arctic, I would call it, no, but it's seasonally cold for mid-December, and a lot of sunshine here. So not a bad weekend coming up for the eastern half of the country. And then you have another big trough right here coming into the Pacific. So we'll see how that plays out. And then here on the next image, you can see what happens is this initial low moves up against, you see the dark red, brown area, that's a positive anomaly. It gets crushed. It can't go against it. This is not nearly strong enough. So it gets wiped out, and you can see that here. And now just a little bit of a circle right here. Now you have a next system coming in, and this is a much stronger system, potentially significant snow in Manitoba and North Dakota, and then the high moves off the coast. You got southerly winds, the moisture increases, the temperatures warm up, and this looks like another big, or at least a moderate rain event for the eastern half of the country. And you can see happening here on December 17th with the next cold front coming through. Again, much like we saw today, same sort of thing. Now the front may move a little faster, and there is some cold air behind it. Notice there's a decent Arctic high coming down, semi-Arctic high, 1040 millibars in Saskatchewan, driving southward. Okay, now let's take a look about week 2. Now here it gets interesting, so pay attention, boys and girls, because this is going to be fun if everything works out. Now we don't know if it's going to work out, I'm just saying, but let's just pay attention. We got possibilities. Let's just call it that, possibilities, okay? All right. So this is now day 7, day 18th. After the Arctic fronts come through here, all right, the cold fronts come through. So now we have not much ridging on the west coast. We're starting to get some ridging here. We have this piece of energy in the southern jet stream in the Texas Panhandle, another one north of Minnesota, and then another piece coming in here. So these two features are going to try and come together, and they're going to create an east coast, well, an eastern U.S. low pressure area, and potentially some kind of winter weather. We'll see. Now, what happens is by the time we get to December 20th, okay, these two pieces of energy come together and form one big system off the coast, and then another one right behind it. It gets very complicated here. So this is the jet stream map for December 20th. There's the first low that was in Texas. Here's another one coming in behind it. Now, and then you have a third piece dropping down. So if these two features could get together, that would be really, really terrific. Okay, but we don't know if they're going to do that. Now, it looks like it does, and you can see that here in this next map. This is December 21. Okay, and now you have a low here right on the southeast U.S. coast. Now, that is going to produce a low pressure area off the coast in this cold air. And if the low is close enough, you're going to get snow on the coastal areas, and certainly in the mountains. But we don't know how close the low is going to be. You see the black line here? You see how it's negatively tilted northwest to southeast? That's a big, potentially big system. But we don't, I mean, this is still a long way out. It's like day 10. Okay, so we don't know this yet. We're seeing indications of something, but that's all it is. Also, notice the change on the west coast. Look at that ridge explode up the west coast all the way into the block north of Alaska. Look at this thing. Wham! That's what the squiggly line means. That's the symbol for ridge. Wham! Way up there. And then look at the lines plunging out of northern Arctic Canada into the Midwest and the Great Lakes and New England. Look at that flow. Look at this thing. Let me enlarge this for you can see a little more. Look at the lines coming out of there. Wow. That's a direct Arctic flow. Just direct. It's going to get cold. Okay. So that's how we're looking at it. So these two systems forms the first system, and then this one might be the second one. It's a very complicated pattern. Let me show you what it looks like. Okay, here is December 19th into the 20th. Okay, there's the low. You have a high over New England, but it's moving off the coast, and the low comes up the Appalachians or just inland, and it's mostly rain for everybody. Even in upstate New York, it's freezing rain going to rain. This is way too far inland, and the high is in the wrong position. You're getting an east wind and a southeast wind. This is rain. Now, what happens is, here comes the second feature. Remember we talked about this system on the Carolina coast? There it is. Okay, now if this is close enough to the coast on December 22nd, that's going to produce a snowstorm. I don't know if it's going to happen. Also, notice the big giant high coming down from the north, big semi-Arctic high here. So this has potential, but we don't know. Now the GFS has the first system here further east. All right, remember that's the European solution. Here's the GFS, further east. Again, it's rain on the coast, snow in the mountains. This is also a very viable solution. It's very possible. Okay, I'm more concerned about the second system, not the one on December 20th. I'm more concerned about this one as a potential event. Now, if you look at some of the AI models, here is the this is the GFS, and this is the 00 actually. The new just came out. So here's this big trough here on December 18th, 19th in the Midwest. Now notice you have no blocking here at all. This is just a trough moving through right across the country, another one coming in behind it. So there's no blocking or anything to slow this down. Now what happens is you can see here by the time we get to December 20th, this thing actually develops a bit of a negative tilt, and I don't know exactly how the model does that. This strikes me as a little odd. But if it's nice, that's a very nice position to have, this shortwave energy here in the Carolinas producing a low pressure area on the coast. That would be quite significant if that were to happen. I just don't know if it's going to happen. But this is just the AI models. I'm not a big fan of the AI yet. I'm just pointing out that the potential is there. Now here is the GFS for beyond this. This takes us also to make a day on this. Behind December 21, and you can see this enormous trough coming in here. So bring in the cold air, and again, look at the flow of these lines straight out of the Arctic Canada. Oh my God, looks like a cold air mass. Again, we don't know if the AI is right here or not. Here's the European solution. This is the 12Z run. So here, the European has this low in Texas. And then there's another piece of energy right here north of Montana and near Manitoba. So what happens is this and this, they get together and you get this. All right. Now that's a Midwest Ohio Valley storm. This is too far to the west. It's got to be on the coast for the East Coast. Okay? But there's something coming in behind it. And this is another piece of energy here in California. And now you have the cold air in place. This is December 24. This has awful looking like a Christmas event if this is right. But I don't know. This is so far out in time. Who the heck knows? Let me take this. That's not right. Get rid of that. So this is just an AI model. I don't know if it's right or not. But point is, look at the cold air. Look, this is much more favorable here. So we'll see. Now, if we look at the extended models, here's the European ensemble for December 21. And you can clearly see, first, look at the flow coming out of Canada. Just some really cold stuff. Look at this stuff. Plunging. And there's your trough right on the East Coast. So there's going to be something here along or just off the East Coast. And this is now December 25. This is Christmas Day. Now here the trough is a little further to the west, not on the East Coast. And again, look at the flow coming out of Canada. That's a really cold pattern. So is something going to form in the Ohio Valley, the Tennessee Valley, which could threaten the East Coast with some kind of winter weather event on December 25? It's possible. Okay, it's possible. This is not looking like a huge East Coast winter storm. The upper air pattern is completely wrong, but something could form there, and there's a lot of cold air in place. Absolutely. And then this here is December 26th. Look how cold this pattern is. You see? Now, let me show you here. I should have posted this earlier. Remember when I talked about this little system? Where was it? Here. Developing, which one was it? I wanted to talk about which map was it? Yeah, the potential for this system, developing, which the European is being, this is GFS, the European, yeah. this system here developing on the 20th and possibly something behind it. This is the European AI 18Z run. Notice it's got the second low. This is December 23rd. Look at this, in the cold air, deep in the cold air. That's all snow for the Carolinas, Virginia, and then along the coastal areas of New England. Now, again, this is way, way out there. There's no reason to think that this is going to happen. Again, I got old text in there from another slide. No reason to think this is going to happen, but you can see here that this is got potential. It's potential. Just wait and see. I know, it's been a long time since we've seen the Christmas snow. I get all that. So people want that to happen. But, what you want to happen and what's going to happen are two different things. In science, we don't care what you want to happen. It's got nothing to do with it. It deserves, as Clint Eastwood said in the movie The Unforgiven, it's got nothing to do with it. But again, you can see there's a lot of energy coming in here. The pattern does show some potential. Something December 20th, okay? You can see 21 and then maybe 23, 24. So it's got potential. And the cold air is definitely coming back. But last couple of slides here. Here is the extended, I'll get this out again. This is the extended CFS. Notice here, by the time we get to mid-January, we're about to enter phase 8. And that is a snowstorm pattern in neutral conditions, and so is phase 1. So we'll see if it gets that way. But certainly, like I said, by the first week of January, we're certainly in a much better position. Also, the polar vortex winds shows significant weakening. Here are the winds from the European projection at 10 millibars, and you can see the dark blue line is the mean of all the blue lines. You can see how it's dropping. This is neutral here. Okay, so it's very strong winds here. You can see the winds are clearly weakening as we go into the middle of January, which is really, really great news. And here's the GFS, same sort of idea. This takes us to January 7th to January 14th. You can see, again, all the model runs are clearly trending weaker and weaker with the winds. Weaker winds means that the vortex can split. Okay, when the vortex splits, you get a much more stormy pattern, not only in the US, but also in Europe. So that's why that's important. Again, so overall, I'm pretty positive about this pattern, and I don't think you should be bummed out at all. All right, there we go. Now we'll do another. We're going to do another update next week on the 19th. If this thing for Christmas looks like it's going to be a bigger deal, I may do a special one, maybe over the weekend of that would be the 21st or 22nd. We'll see how that plays out. All right, that's the report. Hopefully you liked it. This is meteorologist DT from Weather Risk. I will see you over on the Blue Sky page if you want to go by there, the Facebook page, or over on the website.